Uh, all right, so here is your bell ringer for today. So, quick review. Sorry, coming back and somber events, terrible events here at Pearl Harbor, but got to talk about it. America's entrance in the war. There you go. So, why did Japan attack Pearl Harbor? So, describe the event and its impact. So, towards the end of class on Wednesday of last week, we had that long break. Talked about Pearl Harbor. We mentioned about America's entrance finally here in this war, and it's unfortunately is an event like Pearl Harbor that brought the U.S. into the conflict. And towards the end of class, I talked about why Japan unleashed this attack. So make sure you look into that through your notes. You need to use your iPad to help you. We'll bring a map down so we can plug that to the viewpoint. Also, I do have a map assignment for you, which I'll probably wait till tomorrow to assign it. So for next week, we're going to focus here and look at the Pacific theater and focus on some of these island chains where Japan's looking to expand and materialize lands, not only in the Pacific Islands, but also in mainland and Southeast Asia. Bless you. Bless you.
Let's see. You okay? What?
First two wasn't even possible.
What?
What?
Austin was the one scene.
He's making up stuff.
Just like where he went. Oh, I wanted to go see some jousting.
Sure he did. All right, okay, so why did Japan attack Pearl Harbor? What was the reason for it? Couple of reasons. Connor, go ahead.
The USA upgraded Japan after they started materializing much land throughout the, Western half of the world.
Yeah, good. So we already talked about Japan, where they get their roots, right? We talked about how they started to industrialize. How did it happen? Who helped them out when it came to industrialization? Who was it? Who helped them out? Chris. Yeah, the United States, right? So in the mid-1800s, we talked about how with gunboat diplomacy, these ships came over to open up trade with Japan. The United States were getting trade, and we have access now to the Asian countries where we can access more of this trade of spices and resources that you can't find really anywhere else. And that's going to benefit our market. Same time, Japan accepted industrialization. So ever since the 1850s, mid-1800s, Japan has been growing at an alarming rate. And Japan is a what? What is it? An island, right? So it's an island. It's limited to what resources and materials it has. So in order to try to stay up to date here, in order to try to stay modernized, in order to try to advance at the world level, they have to expand. Okay, they need to expand in these other areas to extract these resources and raw materials. So this age of imperialism we talked about in Europe happening in the 1800s. Well, for Japan, it comes a little bit later. And in this case here, building up to World War II, in the early 1900s, moving into World War II in the 1930s, 1920s, Japan expanded here in the Korean Peninsula, right here in China, pretty much expanding all of the eastern coast of China, and even down here into what they call the French Indochina, modern day Vietnam. And that's what really pushed the United States to say, okay, enough's enough, right? Here Japan's acting aggressive. They're extracting these resources, treating the people there, obviously as slaves, killing many of them, brutalizing millions of people in China and in modern day Vietnam. And as they're expanding into these areas, the United States trying to stop this advancement, to try to stop this imperialization, they cut off trade with Japan. They cut off oil, right? And again, Japan is limited to what resources they have. They need that in order to grow. So if you cut off that resource, well, chances are they're going to retaliate. Also, who controls the Philippines? Who controls the Philippines? Go ahead, Paul. Yeah, the United States. So here we are. We have a presence in their backyard, right up against their doorstep. So in any case, right, Japan sees this as a threat. They see this as an advancement into their own backyard. In order for them to grow as a world power, they have to eliminate these rivals, these enemies that are very close to their doorstep, which the United States is. So yeah, we go from the mid-1800s of the United States helping Japan, influencing them to become an industrial power, and quickly they become our enemy. Why? Because of materialization, they need resources, right? And also with this embargo, this trade cutoff of oil to Japan. And they look to conquer and they look to try to take lands far out in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, we all know the United States has Hawaii, right? We know. Whoa. It wasn't me.
Way to go, Bill. We break.
It was you. We all know with Pearl Harbor, this military base, this naval base, okay, way out in the Pacific Ocean. All right, so sad story again, right? We don't want to. And we'll start break and end break here with an event like this to talk about this. But Pearl Harbor, the attack on Pearl Harbor, which happened when? When was this? Why? Go ahead. December 7th, 1941, right? So this is going to change the game forever. Right? Ever since this event here in the United States, yeah, they had to rebuild their Pacific fleet. But ever since then, well, the United States hasn't put that in place when it comes to military expansion and when it comes to military advancements. So overall, this event changes the way the world looks forever. Right? Still to this day, the United States has a lot of influence throughout the world, which, if we look at current events, and with China rising to power, and with the Russia-Ukraine war, this is causing a lot of tensions for the United States and its relationship worldwide. But ever since 1941, when the United States enters World War II, the U.S. goes through this change, goes through this evolution, really, when it comes to its
military presence around the world. All right, so how many sailors died here? Okay, not only sailors, but citizens of the United States died in this event. How many people? Chris? Yeah, 2,500. Yep. So 2,500 people died, suffered during this event. And it showed that the United States isn't so far away, right, from the enemy. Right? Yeah, we have the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean separating ourselves from a lot of these aggressive nations, especially over in Europe with Germany advancing. We mentioned about them. And now here with Japan. Okay, these oceans are obviously a good force, a good sense of protection from us and the rest of the world. But sooner or later, with all these innovations and all this advancement, especially with naval power, well, the world's not so large anymore. So with that, okay, 2,500 people dying, this pushes the United States to enter the war. Okay, and also our Pacific Fleet is out for 6 months. So this is a huge cost, a huge damage. And for the United States, we need to adjust not only to fight a war over in the Pacific and in Southeast Asia, island hopping our way in this tropical environment, utilizing battleships, aircraft carriers, airplanes up in the air, right, that are launching off these aircraft carriers. But also, we got to fight a totally different war now over in Europe, because just shortly after, Germany declares war on the United States. So here we are fighting a two-front war. And we mentioned already, usually for a country like Germany in World War I, does a two-front war, does that ever pan out for that country? No, it doesn't. And let alone fighting in two totally different environments. So for the U.S., this is a huge task, right? And it's going to be a daunting task, really, which we'll mention here throughout the course of really the rest of the year. So our goal here is to end with the Holocaust, okay? And we'll talk a little bit about post-World War II, but that's where the class really ends. So that is where the U.S. perspective will pick up. So that's the goal here. That's the goal for the end of the year. But in any case, Pearl Harbor, the United States entrance into World War II. All right, so we talked about these neutrality acts, how we try to stay out for so long. But an event like this, well, there's no other answer. And one quick quote by a Japanese general said, yeah, we may have won this attack, surprise attack at Pearl Harbor, but we woke the sleeping giant, meaning that the United States, with its industrial power and with all of its resources, where it's located, obviously, right, this is going to help. And this is only going to be a force that's going to be really, really tough to beat, right? And this is going to be a country that's going to be one of these next superpowers, which obviously it is. All right, so real quick, here's your assignment for today, which this is going to be due tomorrow. So what I'd like you to do is read through these sources here. Okay, it's a good bit of information. It talks about a Japanese pilot during World War II, his perspective, and also returning back to Pearl Harbor years after the event, right? And his feelings towards the U.S., his feelings towards the attack, and I think you'll find it interesting. It also talks about a U.S. sailor, talks about journalists, too, that were there at Pearl Harbor, thinking that, nothing's ever going to happen way out here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But again, this event, we know, one of the only attacks, right, in American history. Yeah, you can say 9/11 here, you can say War of 1812, right? But other than that, there's not been too many. All right, so what you're going to do is answer these questions attached to this Google Doc. Okay, that's it. And you're going to read through these perspectives. Okay, so here is the Japanese pilot. It's really short, actually. And then you'll see a U.S. sailor here. And then you'll see civilians, what their perspective was. And then there's a reporter. Okay, if you want to, you guys check this out. It's just called the Day of Wrath, right? It gets cut off here. Sorry about that. I guess I got to look to print that out again. But those are the perspectives I'd like you to read and answer the questions pertaining to that. So again, Sunday morning. Oh, Sunday morning. No one was really expecting it. Okay. Again, you hear these airplanes flying over top. A lot of these sailors just thought, oh, it's just a routine. It's just something that happens every single day when you're on a military base. But quickly, they found out on December 7th, 1941, Sunday morning, and it wasn't just a strategy or any type of aerial routine. No. Okay, so I'll give you some time here. please have this finish up for tomorrow. We will discuss it. We will go over it. Okay, and yeah, I think it's good to focus on these primary resources, focus on the actual firsthand accounts of the event. Then tomorrow, once we're done going over that, I will sign the Pacific map for you. Like next week, expect a quiz on that then, okay? So on the Pacific Theater. So we just talked about the European theater a little bit. We'll go back to that here soon enough, but I just want to focus more too on the landmarks, these key island chains, these countries over in Asia. And for current events, well, it's good focus, right? You can see exactly what's going on there with a lot of buildup, a lot of tension with the island of Taiwan right off of China. So it's good relation, right? And good understanding where these landmarks are, these countries.